4. And you need to watch out. It puts out a lot of damage, but it's kind of weak up on the turret and Commander Cupola right here, which is why I can penetrate him. Hey guys, welcome back to dungeongurunet. This is nethervoid, also known as John, doing a strategy series today for you. And I'm doing a double header today, a double episode, because I have a bunch of tanks, as you can see. There have been a lot of sales, and I've been picking up tanks that I've been meaning to do strategy series on. And I've had to buy tons of garage slots, and I'm tired of it, so I'm going to do 2 today to get rid of some of these tier 4s. So today we're doing the B1, which is the French heavy line. It's the tier 4 French heavy. It's the first one I'll be doing a video on, and obviously I'll be moving my way down the tree here. And a lot of people have noticed, and I've noticed, that the first few tiers of French tanks are really bad. The MX-40 is okay just because it has that armor, and the gun is actually pretty good on it. It's slow, but at least you can damage people with it. But this B1 was probably my least fun tank I've ever played in the game. Well, it's right up there, and that's because the armor is okay, but, you know, the whole armor is okay, but the gun is so bad. It's only got a 66 pen gun, and we'll talk about more about that later. But you can't hit anything with it. It's really hard to hit stuff with it. But so let's just get right into it here. We're going to go over stats and overall playstyle. So I'm kind of already talking about the playstyle. And the playstyle of this tank, that I actually realized it after I'd already I only played like 2 games, my last couple of games with it. It's a flanking heavy tank. And I didn't notice that before, just because usually with the think of heavy, it's in your face brawling tank. And there are not that many flanking heavy tanks, the IS-3 being one of the ones that comes to mind. IS is also kind of a flanking heavy. But this is definitely a flanking heavy tank because it's got some speed. It's only 28 speed limit, but that's not that bad for a heavy. It's actually got enough acceleration to get you to that speed quite often, and it's not that fast of a tank, so that's why I was kind of like not sure it was a flanking heavy. But you know, it does decent enough that it is a flanking heavy, and with the gun the way it is, with the penetration of the gun being so horrible, you have to play it pretty much as a flanking heavy. The 2 videos I'm showing you here, I'm not playing it as a flanking heavy. I'm playing it a little bit as a flanking heavy, I guess, because I'm doing some scouting, which you would not normally do in a heavy tank. And another game I'm showing you, I just kind of push up in people's faces, because when you're top tier, you can do that a little bit, and it's easier a little bit to do when you're top tier in this tank. But if you're lower on the list, especially if you're in a tier 5 or 6 game, you do need to flank with this tank. So that's pretty much the playstyle of this tank. So let's go over stats. 370 hit points, which actually it's a little higher with the upgraded turret. And I'll just spend the money, I don't really care, whatever. It's 400 hit points with the upgraded turret. Not horrible, but not that great, especially for heavy. It's kind of meh. It's okay. I guess it's pretty standard. I don't really know. I mean, whatever. 180. Well, actually, that's not true either. 350 horsepower engine on 29 tons. It's a little better than average. It's awesome for heavy. I mean, it moves really fast for heavy. But for tier 4 tank, it's just kind of it's okay. It's not that great. The PZ3 is a much better tank than this tank by far as mobility, and the gun is better. But you're going to have to play this tank a lot like you play a PZ3 if you have that tank, which is definitely a flanking deep enemy territory tank. So 350 horsepower is not too bad, but it isn't that great. It does have decent acceleration, and let's go right into traverse here. To traverse being 24 degrees on the tracks and 40 on the turret is decent. You're not going to get circled anyway. The turning speed is not very good. It's pretty average. That's why it's definitely, again, it's going to be a difficult tank to flank with. You're not going to be circling anybody, but you're going to have to try to get side shots on people, and you could kind of do it with the speed and the traverse that this tank has if you're very careful with it. The real weakness of this tank is the turret, so you don't want to go hull down and let people and force people to shoot at your turret, because it will jack you up. The only thing that's going to save you is if they don't know that your turret's the weak point on this tank. Then they'll try to shoot you in the hull, and it'll be a lot harder to pen you. The other weak point being this gun in the front here. So if you can hit that gun or the turret, you're gonna hit this tank. So that's pretty much, well, 380 view range is okay for this tank. It's actually pretty good, I think, for this tier, for a tier 4. But again, it's nothing spectacular. This tank doesn't have anything that's actually better than any other tanks. It's either got average stats or lower than average stats. So that's why a lot of people kind of give up when they play this tank. Now, you do see I do have the BDR G1B. I think it's actually a decent tank. It's not a KV, but it's okay. And I think I just got the upgraded gun. Not enough credits. I did unlock it, but it's got a 90 mil gun. It's actually pretty good. That's decent penetration, 135 and 240 damage. So it's worth it to grind through this B1 and get to the BDR G1B. You're gonna have a little more fun with that tank. Just play it out. Just grind through it. And there is a radio to unlock that's really costs a lot of XP to unlock. I went ahead and got it because I want to use that radio all the way up the line, and I think it's a good idea to get. And we'll talk about that later. So those are the general stats and playstyle. I've talked a little bit about the weak points, even though I don't really shouldn't. It's a tier 4. But let's go over the modules here. Now see the 810 meter radio, it's great to get that early because you can use that throughout the life of this tank all the way up to the tier 10 version. And it does get you, especially if you're going to be flanking and maybe going for a little bit of a scout maneuvering, that being able to radio enemy positions back is going to get you a lot more XP and credits. It's going to help you get through this tank quicker, so I do advise getting it. You're not going to get this radio till late if you use my research priority, but still get it and throw it on. It's kind of expensive. If this is your first line, you probably won't be able to afford it. I don't advise getting it if this is your first line of tanks you've ever been through, because that's a lot of money, and you're going to need the money for the BDR G1B. Now, if you're like most people and the French are new tanks, but you have a bunch of other tanks, maybe a low and premium and all that, 41,000 credits is not too bad. It's a great investment. The tracks, you get a little more traverse with them, and you get a little more tonnage. It's definitely good to get. You're obviously going to get them anyway, but getting the extra traverse is really nice, especially for a flanking heavy. So definitely get those. It's not going to be a huge improvement, but it is a good improvement. The engine upgrades are actually pretty steep. The first engine upgrade being the biggest, and it makes you pretty mobile, and it increases your acceleration a great amount. When you first get the tank, it's a little sluggish, as all stock tanks are, which makes this tank one of the most frustrating stock tanks I've ever played, because not only are you not mobile, but your gun is a 20. Well, actually, you should have this 45 pen gun, and it's really, you can't hit anything. 45 pen. Basically, you need to shoot at Russian TDs, because that's the only thing you're going to be able to penetrate stock. So, but this is a nice upgraded engine line here. And when you get to 350, it's pretty nice. Unfortunately, even for 11,000, it doesn't move on past the B1. But I'd still get it. If you're going to grind out this whole tank and unlock the tier 9 radio, you're going to want to unlock all the parts of this tank to make it worthwhile playing, at least for getting your daily or your double daily on. The turret upgrade is decent. You need any kind of armor upgrade you can get to the turret, because it is so weak compared to the hull. You do lose some traverse, but it doesn't really matter, because 40 traverse is still insane. You're going to be able to track on anybody almost, unless you're right in your face. So it doesn't really matter that you lose the traverse. You also gain some view range, which is very nice, especially if you're trying to, again, be in kind of a scout flanking heavy. The extra view range is going to help you spot guys and radio that back to your teammates. The gun, you should have unlocked this SA-35 on the B1, and with 45 pen and 55 damage. Not a good gun. It does reload fast. That's probably you're gonna definitely have to flank with this gun. You're not gonna be able to pin anybody in the front. 45 pen is just not enough. When you get the SA-37 66 pen, it's a little easier to hit people, but still it's not great. If you shoot at the hull on this guy, you'll probably never hit him. With 66 pen and this 60 hull armor that's sloped, you're never going to get through that. So you're going to have to flank. You definitely need to know the weak points of even tier 4 tanks and stuff. You need to shoot the turret ring, or a lot of tanks have in the tier 4 and below have really crappy turret armor, because they didn't know about hold down. They didn't do hold down positions or something back then. I'm not sure. Cupola is always a good spot to hit on almost all tanks. Obviously, you need to flank. On this tank, it's not going to help because it's still a 60. All around, this thing has great hull armor, so you always want to hit this thing in the turret. But get side shots on turrets. And low tier, you can almost always pin on side shots on turrets. Excuse me. So not a great gun upgrade, but still get it. It's going to help with the frustration at least a little bit. Now let's go over research. So here we are looking at the B1 tech tree. Now you're going to have right away the radio and this first gun unlocked from the B1, and that's going to be great. You can actually, this thing has a lot of extra tonnage left over, so you're going to be able to throw that 47 millimeter on there immediately, the SA35, and that's going to help a little bit. So obviously throw the radio on. And so since you have like 4 tons extra space on the tracks on this tank, right away I'd go for that turret and then for the SA37. Because even though it's unlocked, I believe it's unlocked. Yeah, it's unlocked. You can't use it unless you have that upgraded turret. So go for the turret and throw that big gun on it right away, so at least you can damage people. And then you're going to go straight for the first engine to get some mobility, because you don't get a lot out of the tracks. I'd actually go straight all the way down the engine line, and then I go for the tracks. So this is kind of a really backward tank, usually with tracks last. After you get the tracks, I unlocked this tier 9 gun. It takes a long time, so you can see it's halfway. It's half of the BDR G1B. Now, if you're not going to be able to afford to get it because this is your first line of tanks and you're not going to buy it because it is 44,000, just unlock the BDR G1B. You can get that radio later. Now, the earlier you get it, the more it's going to help you throughout your game, so consider that. You might want to get it while you're on the BDR G1B, because you're going to want to unlock that early, and 44K is really not as much when you get into the tier 5 and 6 range. So I unlocked it at the B1 level. You can unlock it, since this is such a pain in the ass tank, you can unlock it at the BDR G1B level if you want, because it is right there, CER 55. So, oh crap, now I'm not going to be able to get back to it. So that's how I did this tech tree, and you're going to see the priority up on the side. It's a little odd, but to me, that's the best way to unlock this tank, especially with the playstyle of flanking. Even though it's nice to have the extra traverse, it's better to have these engines, and the tracks are actually kind of expensive, so I'd get them last. All right, that's the tech tree. Let's get back to the equipment. All right, so that's research. Now we're going to go for equipment. I don't get equipment on any of my tanks. If I was going to get equipment, I'd do something that I could move to the next tier, and so I'd get the toolbox. I'd probably get the binocs, because you're going to be trying to do a little bit of scouting, and I would probably get, I mean, if you want everything to move over without costing gold, you could get the camo net. It's not going to help you a lot because this tank is huge, but binocs will help, toolbox will help, and I guess you could get, well, the gun rammer's not going to really do anything. If you're going to be shooting on, well, you could get the vent. That will move all the way up the line for you, all the way up to the tier 10. You're going to be using vents on all of your tanks, so if you're going to, I would probably get that and move it for 10 gold. It will improve your whole crew, your whole tank by 6% if you have a 100% commander. Since you don't, you're going to have plus 5% to all crew, and plus a little extra from your commander. So that's the equipment. If I was going to get it, I don't get it till tier 7 just because I don't want to have that expenditure. For rounds, I would get probably a little under a third heat rounds and the rest AP rounds, and that's because if you do have to shoot people in the front, switch to HE. Also, if you need to damage people that are capping you, switch to AP to make sure you can get some damage on them and shoot them in the tracks to get that damage on them while they're trying to cap you. Consumables, I don't get any just because I only get them from tier 5 and up, because they're not worth getting. It's 3,000 per pop, and these tanks don't make that much money, especially this tank, because you're not going to be damaging people, and damage is where you get most of your credits from. You can get credits from spotting and stuff like that, but most of it comes from damage. So spending a track, you know, like spending a small repair kit to fix your tracks is really counterproductive if you're trying to make any kind of credits. So I don't get equipment. It's really not worth it for these lower tier games. Plus they're over so quickly. You might fix your track and then boom, you're dead from some other tanks just screaming all over you and stuff. It's just, they move too quickly for consumables to be worth it. So that's pretty much this tank. Your crew is not going to look like this. They're probably going to be about 60%, 65% when you fully unlock this tank. Actually, since I spent so much time unlocking that radio, I actually had like a 70 to 80% crew. If you can see, even after, actually I've played this tank a little while. I think I had a 70% crew even after I dropped off the 20%, maybe a 65%. So I probably had about an 80% crew actually when I got out of this tank. So that's pretty nice. It's going to help you with your accuracy and load speeds and aim times and all that stuff. But that is pretty nice, because having a really poor skilled crew, it's not, you don't notice it as much when you haven't played any high tier tanks, but once you've played with a 100% crew, you definitely notice a 50% crew. They don't even start aiming The reticle didn't even start coming down until like 2 or 3 seconds after you stop, which is really annoying. Their aim time is horrible, their accuracy is horrible, and it's just kind of a pain in the ass. And you saw that in the AMX40 video. I was just not having a fun time playing the AMX40 because my crew could not aim fast enough, and I was just like, come on guys, you know. So having the 80% crew will make this tank a little more playable, and that's pretty much this tank. Let's get it into a game where I do show you some flanking in this thing, and I'm going to show you how to do it a little bit. I don't do a lot of flanking in it, but I do think about not going head on, and you see me shooting directly at the side of an A20, which is one of the crappiest armor tanks in the game, on the side especially, and I can't even pen that tank. I shoot it like 6 times and maybe pen once. For a 66 penetrating gun, I almost feel like the stats are not correct on this gun, but let's get into that game. So here's a game I got on Karelia. This is a pretty good map. There's a lot of different lanes. It's a very old map, one of the oldest maps, and but it's really good. They did redo it once. Excuse me, but it's definitely a really awesome map, and there's a few different ways to go. You can go to the north if you like more sniping. Kind of, you can do some flanking up there as well. It's more of a stepping stone setup, kind of with a bunch of different rocks at the top there. The bottom is more for heavies and direct fire, because there's not a lot of places to hide. They did add some new places when they redid it, which made it a lot more fun on the side, on the bottom side. Also on the bottom, a lot of mediums and fast movers will go up. Man, I can't even control my own. We'll go up into the donut area up here and shoot down from the top. And I'll show you where you can go as a heavy or other tank to counter that and get some great shots on people. So here I did spawn at the top of the list, and that is kind of the game you want in this tank, just because even your tier below, it's hard to hit people. Your tier and above, it becomes extremely difficult to pen people with this gun. You definitely need to get side or back shots if you're going up against tier 5s and above. Even tier 4s, and you'll see one of the tier 4s with the crappiest armor in the game, I'm even having a hard time damaging. Let me take control of that one and see what that is. Oh, Luke's. Yeah, that Luke's is dead. So here's where you can go, and I usually come actually around the backside here and come down through this valley to get into this spot, but you can drive really low into this valley and hopefully avoid getting shot from over in this area where all the big tanks are hiding. So you can see I'm going to come up behind this big rock and take control of the map. Now you can shoot guys that are coming down from over here, right here. You need to hide a little bit. If there's nobody up there, which there isn't, now here's the A20 I was talking about. He is a little angled, but I should be able to hit him. I think he has 20 armor on the side, or maybe 15. This gun has 4 times the penetration I think his armor has, so I should be able to jack him up. Now, my crew kind of sucks, so that could be part of it. But that shot went almost directly on. That was way over. So that was kind of interesting. I couldn't pen that guy. What do we got here? AMX38. So this is where I'm kind of flanking a little bit. I'm not going to drive up right in people's face because... Oh, here we go. Flank the M3 Lee, get him out of the way. That M3 Lee has an awesome gun, and I think I did maybe hit that guy on the last shot because he's almost dead. See? Well, I missed him that time. Oh, finally I get a kill on him. On the side as well over there. If he had his front armor toward me, he might have a better chance. So I'm gonna flank this AMX30. I can see he's driving straight at the M2 medium tank there. So from the side here, I've got some great shots on him. And I keep going to the side. I keep kind of keeping him from turning, and I'm zooming in to make sure I get a proper hit on him. See how I'm bouncing, but see, he gives me the side armor. Well, it doesn't matter. He's dead now. He's getting surrounded. But anyway, like I was saying, the M3 Lee has a really good gun, and that's why, excuse me, that's why I don't think it's as bad as people think, because the gun is so great for a tier 4. And you need to watch out. It puts out a lot of damage, but it's kind of weak up on the turret and Commander Cupola right here, which is why I can penetrate him. So at this point, I'm getting focus fired pretty much, and I'm trying to hide a little bit. Now my main gun accuracy is going to be really bad. I'm going to have to get in people's faces. I don't have a repair kit. I wouldn't repair it anyway, even if I had one, because it's not worth the 3K. This game is pretty locked up. We're winning by 4 tanks. We crushed the south and we're moving in on the base, so this is pretty much a done deal. I still have a pretty good amount of hit points. Luckily, I did not get hit by those 2 M3 Lees, or I would have had I might have been dead, because those things have more than 100 damage on them, on their main gun. What do we got up here? A Jag 1. No problem. They have okay guns for a tier 2. I mean, for a tier 2, it's pretty decent. But, yeah, he's dead. Now that is a much better tank, the PZ3. 350 hit points. A slightly better penetrating gun. I think it's got a 76 penetration gun, but it's got a lot more mobility. So, and that's what you really want on a tank like this. If you're gonna have a not great performing gun, you want fast maneuverability. The armor is actually, I think, pretty decent. I haven't looked at the stats for a while. I have that tank down. I'm gonna do a strategy series on it because it was on sale. They've had like 3 or 4 sales in a row, and so that's why I've grown my garage so much lately. But I need to get those tier 4s and stuff out of the way. And then when I sell them, since the sale will be over, I'll get back the same amount of money as I spent buying the tanks. The only thing I'm out is the equipment. There's a slight module cost, but what do we got over here? An AT-1 and an SU-26. The AT-1 can be pretty devastating because that's a really good gun for a tier 2, but it does not have many hit points. So if you can hit it first, a lot of times you can take it out. Slowly creeping up on the base here. You can see I'm going 18 kilometers per hour, which is not that great uphill. But, you know, what can you expect? This is a heavy tank, even though it doesn't play at all like a heavy tank. But once we get over the hill, it gets a little more speedy here. And this is kind of a World War I designed tank, which is kind of why it was so poor. I was watching a greatest tank battles about this tank versus the PZ3 and 4s, and it got roasted. I mean, it just got demolished. Couldn't penetrate, couldn't do crap, was super huge. PZ3 4s are flanking the crap out of it. I'll have to put a link up to that. Now, I'm shooting this Wesp. Takes a little bit for my crew to zoom in, but they do zoom in pretty quickly just because they're actually pretty skilled at this point. Let's take out the M5 Stewart. He could ruin me pretty bad with that gun. Luckily, he misses. The reload speed on this thing does save me a little bit right there. So, I gotta watch out that Wesp could one-shot me. Luckily, he kind of ignores me, and I got a good shot from the hip there. Kind of a lucky shot. 4 kills. That's an amazing game for this tank. It took me a long time to get a good enough game like this to actually to show it to you guys. Usually this is not the kind of game you're going to have. If you try to do a flanking strategy, you will have a little better luck. You're still going to die a lot, and especially with the flanking strategy, it's definitely more of a gamble. So this is going to be a frustrating tank, but just keep pushing through it because the BDR G1B is actually a lot better. It's better than the T1 Tier 5 Heavy. If you've ever played the American Tier 5, I think it's better than that tank because it's got a lower profile. And the gun is just as good or better. So 930-point game. That's crazy for this tank. That is very unlikely. This is not how it usually works out with this tank. So 4 kills, damaged 2 guys, detected that M3 Lee. Great game. Can't expect anything more out of this tank. This is probably one of the best games I had in this tank. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time.